Welcome, everybody. I'm J. Marcelo Vaquero Alvarez, and this is the I Told You podcast. This is from Half-Life Crisis and the Info in Context project, which are designed to tell you not what you want to hear, but rather what you need to hear, and something that nobody else seems to be doing right now in the media and from the White House down. This is not a podcast for snowflakes, so if you are a snowflake who gets offended about stupid things, this is going to hurt, but it doesn't matter because the reality is that the facts don't care about your feelings. I care about telling you the truth, and this is what this is about. So today we're going to be talking about geopolitics for dummies and how this affects you. And yes, geopolitics is important even if you don't understand it, because it's going to be affecting your life sooner or later, actually sooner than later. So let's define geopolitics. Very easy, is geography and politics. That's what it means. Geopolitics, geography, and politics. I don't know how far or how long this podcast is actually going to be going through. It might actually be a little bit longer one because there's a lot to cover. But I'm going to make it as easy as possible. So I promise, if you haven't actually understood this topic before, you're going to have a better grasp. I'm not going to make you a subject matter expert because that takes years, of course. But I am going to be giving you some information that you've never heard before, or perhaps frame it in a way that is going to help you understand it better. So when you're talking about geography, think about it like a board game, okay? Like Monopoly or chess or whatever board game. And geography is like that board, okay? Like that game board. Being a chess board or being like any type of game that you play on a board. That's what it looks like. Geography is extremely important. And politics are going to be the rules that are going to be playing between all those different assets that are going to be laid out throughout the board. So some people are going to try to cheat. And that is why it's very important to have people who really understand the rules, and people who do not understand the rules are probably going to be left behind by those who are going to be bending the rules and trying to find a way that it's possibly looking legit, but it's not. So how does that work? There are about north of 200 countries in the world, and that includes some micronations that some people realize that they're real and some people don't realize that they're real. Okay, so for the majority of countries that are actually recognized by the international community, there's going to be a whole bunch of other countries that they have their own government, they have their own rules, and each one of them is going to have their own way to govern themselves. Some are going to be kind of colonies from other countries, so they are not independent. There's going to be others who are actually under the heel of an authoritarian. So these authoritarian countries might actually also be puppet nations for another country that has more influence or has a history of violence and all kinds of other things that would be unpleasant for anybody who takes freedom for granted, especially here in the West. So the USA right now, we are the leader in the world, but that doesn't mean that we are not losing prestige. You have to understand this. The world is united more than ever before. And anything that happens in the USA, whenever you see something embarrassing going on in Congress, when people are saying something stupid, you say, for example, a representative who doesn't understand the subject matter expert advice and is just talking off their ass, that is incredibly convenient for some of the other adversarial nations who are going to show, you see that? The USA does not know what the fuck they're talking about. Our government, even though it's authoritarian, we have a strong man. We understand the rules. In the USA, you see, it's just like anarchy. They don't have an idea what they're doing. They just elect somebody who barely has a GED and is trying to speak something important, but this person doesn't understand what the fuck the person's talking about. By the way, yeah, we do have that in our Congress. We have a prominent person, I'm not going to say the name, you look it up, that barely has a GED and is a representative, and he has been reelected. Just so you see, okay, that happens. There's a reason why some people get to certain positions need to have certain skills, certain knowledge, so they don't become convenient to an adversarial regime. Does that make sense? So it's not just whatever we are talking here in the USA. It is going to go way beyond our borders. way beyond our time frame, way beyond even our generations. This becomes part of American history. And we have been losing the prestige because essentially in the last several years, the American politics have become a reality show. I know that for some people in the USA who don't really understand anything about politics, it looks, okay, this is really cool because now I'm kind of like understanding because I'm part now of the political process. Yeah, I understand. No, you don't understand, motherfucker. You're not understanding. You are being presented a show. And if you think that that is only happening in the USA, well, then you're also really fucking naive because that is also been happening around other countries. What we're seeing in the USA is not unique to the USA, is not really new. It's a playbook that authoritarians have been using pretty much from the times of Alexander the Great. But it's been going for a long time. It is new for the USA because we're a young nation still, relatively speaking, and we are very arrogant and we think that we are the smartest people in the room. And yes, we do have very, very smart people in the USA, but the smart people have been phased out by a whole bunch of opportunistic assholes who are just looking for clout or just trying to make a TikTok video for their constituents or whoever audience that they're pandering to, which usually happens to be a person that is going to help them stay in power to continue pushing the agenda from that person that is keeping them in power. So for right now, yeah, we're having that, but the problem is that we're electing people who are dumb as shit. And I told you in a previous episode that there's two types of insider threats. There's the witting insider threat, somebody who's sabotaging their own team wittingly. They know that they're doing something wrong. And there is the unwitting insider threat, somebody who is doing exactly the same thing, sabotaging, but they're too fucking stupid to realize it. Now, we have a lot of those in Congress. Maybe they do that wittingly, maybe they do it unwittingly. The fact is that they are still convenient to the adversarial regimes. How do we know that? Because they're repeating exactly the same state-sponsor talking points, verbatim. So if you go to some of these adversarial nations, and when we're talking about an adversarial nation, is a nation said, yeah, I would be okay nuking the USA. Yes, I would be okay attacking the USA. And they've said that overtly. So it's not that it's maybe they do it, maybe they don't. No, they have been saying, yeah, we would be bombing the USA. We would be using nuclear weapons. That has happened. You haven't been paying attention probably because a lot of people, they rather pay attention to anything else than the things that are directly going to be affecting their entire future. And we're going to be talking a little bit more about that so you can see how that had happened in other places around the world. But the problem is that this still lowers our prestige around the world, and the rest of the other nations, they see, well, you know, the USA, they seem to be now acting like toddlers. Look at their Congress, look at their representatives, look at how they are being manipulated. So instead of actually getting that prestige, they are moving away from the U.S. sphere and they start looking, okay, so who is grown up in the room? Maybe Russia, maybe China, maybe, they don't seem to be acting like kids, even though you have a lot of different restrictions if you're in those countries. But that is how it works, okay? So just think about it. The USA right now has a seat at the table again because during the first Trump administration, essentially he took us out of a lot of important congresses and meetings and places that we were supposed to be having a seat at the table because he didn't want to be there, especially if he felt butthurt or whatever. But this is like kind of like having like a dumb friend at a party, okay? So you go to a nice classy party, you know, and everybody's dressed up or everybody, you know, has like a particular decorum, you know, you have like a certain environment. And there comes somebody that is just loud and obnoxious and it doesn't necessarily fit into that vibe, okay? It's the same thing. It's people might invite that person that one time and tolerate it because they're your friends, but they might say, well, you know, next time either don't bring your friend or just don't even bring yourself. And if you think it's only the uptight portion, so let's flip it up. Let's say that it's a very jovial party where everybody else is just having a good old time and everybody just dressing down, and now you bring the stiff friend that is wearing a tuxedo. Yeah, it's going to be looking out of place. In other words, there's a time and place for everything. And that's why we have certain rules in Congress. That's why there's certain level of solemnity to understand how it is going to be working in the world stage, because we are talking about serious things. We're talking about serious business. And people who are giving those positions, they need not only to be serious, but they need to understand what the fuck they are talking about. And not only the people who are the face for that, I also blame their staff, because each one of these Congress people, they have a staff. Are these staff also just a rubber stamp, and they're not speaking truth to power? Hey, boss, you're saying something stupid here. Let me do some research for you so you don't sound like an idiot in national television, because it doesn't just go to C-SPAN and to all the other places that you think that is going. It is also going internationally, lowering the prestige of the USA. So the USA sets the status quo for the world right now. The USA is not perfect. No place is perfect, but it is the best country right now in the world, even if you don't like it. That's why a lot of people, they gravitate and want to come towards the USA rather than going somewhere else. There's a reason for that. The reason is because we had many rules set in place. Everybody had a voice. Everybody was holding everybody accountable. That has been shifting away for a very, very long time now. It's really before 2016, it started eroding. You can really start looking at that from the 80s and start kind of like moving a little bit weird. The 90s was just some craziness that it did happen. So there was corruption. If you don't think that there wasn't corruption in some areas, then you're really naive. But overall, every country has some level of corruption. But the USA was the better alternative. And you set the status quo as far as liberty of the press and liberty of speech and freedom of speech or freedom of religion or freedom from religion and all those good things, if somebody is upholding those rules. If you're not upholding the rules, then essentially you lose all that. And it's going fast. So what happened in the Trump's first term is that it started changing the dynamic. Certain things that are not normal became normalized. And whenever he was called out for that, he doubled down and tripled down. And a lot of his acolytes went, oh, yeah, so I'm not even going to think about what he does because he's my choice. And since he's my choice, I'm just going to be listening to him, regardless of whoever else had anything important to say. But remember what I told you in all these episodes. The person who is in a government team, they're not supposed to be a rubber stamp. They're supposed to be able to speak truth to power. Speak truth to power. That's what we have been losing. And when we do that, then other nations who seem to be more cohesive, even if it is in an authoritarian manner, because if you speak out of turn, they'll pretty much make you disappear in one way or the other, then those nations start filling the gap. When the USA loses the prime spot in the world, then somebody else takes its place. And that's what we're seeing. Somebody else is taking that place. It's shifting. That's what is called great power competition. Great power competition means that somebody wants to bump the USA out of the number one spot. And that's been happening. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen with a war. It doesn't happen kinetically. That's stupid. They destroy it from the inside out by dividing the people. When people are divided, then we become an easier target. It's really that simple. But of course, the process is a lot more complex in execution. Now, when we fuck up in our political discourse, this, as I say, it gets broadcast around the world as evidence that the USA is a quote-unquote failing nation. You might be surprised to hear about this, but there's a whole bunch of countries from all those 200 countries, even the ones who like us, who want to see the USA fail. They want to see the USA fail. Because we are known as the quote-unquote the empire. We are arrogant. We are the police of the world. Whatever, like other epithet or description that you have heard. Yeah, they talk shit about us behind our backs. But they needed us because we were setting the status quo in the world. When we don't set the status quo, then guess what happens to the USA? We become just like any of those other countries who are actually making fun of us. The moment that we lose our primacy in the world, we don't keep the shiny city in the hill that on the hill that we have right now. No, that's not what happens. We lose it because it becomes a self-inflicted wound by electing people who are not upholding the rule of law, by people who are not speaking truth to power. Because nobody has all the answers. So you need to have people who really understand a certain subject so they can articulate that to the decision makers. That's how it's supposed to be working. That system has been broken. So when you hear people like in Trump's case that he was using during his campaigns, don't take my words for it. Just look at his campaigns. We're a failing nation. We're a third world country. Everybody's laughing at us. When that comes out of the mouth from a prominent figure, that is gold. Gold for propaganda. Because you know what they get to say? Hey, people who I am oppressing you since I'm your dictator, the USA is not going to save you. The USA is a failing nation. The USA is not the good status quo. And then they use that also as a catalyst to push certain narratives that are, of course, against the USA. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because now people who are too dumb to understand that this is a obvious exaggeration at the very least and a downright lie, they believe that the USA is in fact in decline. We were not in decline. We are not in decline. We were hitting record highs in the economy. We were hitting record highs in all kinds of the good parts of the USA in the last 4 years. Yeah, we took a dive when Trump was there, even before COVID was still going down. And then he just said that, well, it was COVID, whatever, happened that fucked us up. But yeah, nobody could have seen that coming. Bullshit. We saw that coming. There was a whole bunch of people that were saying, hey, we're just a week behind Italy when Italy was the epicenter. And a week before that, we could see what was going on in Europe. And then he came to the USA. Months into the COVID-19 portion, Trump was saying that, no, that was not real. So it went down way before his time. And he was living large. Yeah, you know why the economy was good? Think about it if you have a credit card and you're spending that credit card balance, okay? You're spending. Yeah, it's going to be looking like you're living large for a while, but then you have to pay the fucking bill. That's what happened when Biden came in. So Biden had to pay the bill, and the U.S. economy is a lot more complex, of course, than a credit card. So it was going to be taking a long time for this inflation and all this other shit that needed to be fixed. And that doesn't mean that they did a perfect job, but there was going to be a lot of complexity behind that. Now, if Trump would have actually had the economy that Biden has right now, he would have been bragging about how fucking good it is. I wrote an article that I actually give you the numbers to set the baseline so you can see how it was. This is the best economy that we had so far, given especially all the circumstances. And now he's going to be taking credit from it, and he's probably going to destroy it because, again, he's going to be overspending. This is the same man who bankrupted not one but two casinos. So how you can go bankrupt with two casinos? Yeah, just think about that for a moment. So when he's talking about, as a third world country or people are laughing at us, well, he's making a self-fulfilling prophecy. What do they do in third world countries? They elect a small group of loyalists. Not the most qualified people, loyalists. So what is he doing? He is right now selecting loyalists. Is the USS failing? Why is it failing? You should ask that question. Why is it failing? It is failing because it's given the perception that the USA is not doing what they're supposed to be doing by electing some really dumb people to positions at all levels of government. So most Americans, unfortunately, they are very dumb when it comes to understanding the rest of the world. I mean, they're really dumb about even understanding the nomenclature of their own continental USA. If I ask a person from, from the West Coast to point where Minnesota is or where Wisconsin is or point where Kentucky is from a blank map, they might not even know what the fuck that is. Yeah, that happens. The same thing, like a person from the south, okay, like point me where is, I don't know, Colorado, where's Utah, where's West Virginia, and point it from a map, or where's Rhode Island, or where's Delaware. They might not be able to point it out. And that is the USA. Now, if they say, well, that would be, the USA, it doesn't matter, it's just one country. Okay, so if you're really paying attention to what's going on in the world and you think that whatever I'm telling you, it's hyperbolic or it doesn't matter, let me call that bluff on you. Would you be able to point in a map the following things that I'm going to be asking you? Kaliningrad, from Russia, where is it located? It's by the Baltic. Okay? It's a small, a little annex, essentially, from Russia that is separated from their mainland. That is a very important strategic place. The Donbas area in Ukraine. What about that? Where is it? Well, that is on the eastern side of the Ukraine where the invasion started in 2024. What about the Transnistria area in Moldova? Where's the fuck's Moldova? Well, Moldova is right pretty much next to the Ukraine, and they have this area that they still live as in Soviet times. That is very, very pro-Russia, even though the rest of Moldova is not very, very pro-Russia. How about Lithuania? That's also in the Baltic. That's the biggest country of the Baltic, and it is essentially right next to Kaliningrad, and right next to Poland, and right next to Belarus. So a very important country, strategically speaking. I said, well, I don't give a fuck too much about Europe, okay, so I care about Israel. Okay, so where's the West Bank? Where's important? Who lives there? What is going on with the settlements? What is the new U.S. policy about that? How about the Gaza Strip? That's also where there's a whole bunch of Palestinians and there's a lot of people dying. And that is within the confines of Israel, even though they have a wall built around it. So let's talk about something different. How about Taiwan? Do you know where Taiwan is? Can you point it out in the map? And why is it important? Yeah, we could be going to war because of that, if something would happen, because there have been so many tensions, not just with the USA, but with a whole bunch of people, and a lot in the South China Sea. Can you even point where the South China Sea is? What about Venezuela? What is going on with Venezuela? Well, Trump said during his speech that Venezuela was so good now, so safe, that the next RNC was going to take place in Venezuela. So what's going on? Who's ruling Venezuela? What is the situation with Venezuela? Did you know that they are actually friends with Russia? Did you know that they're friends also with Iran? Did you know that they're actually not friends with anybody else, essentially, in the same area? How about the Golan Heights? Do you know about the Golan Heights? Where are those? Okay. Oh, yeah. You should know if you're God-fearing, because that's where supposedly Armageddon is going to start from. That's where the second coming of Jesus is supposed to be happening. That's, of course, the northern part of Israel, bordering those other Arab countries where there are tensions right now. So have you been paying attention to that? Because World War III could actually start. If you don't care about the wars that mankind creates, well, it's going to be a holy war because it's going to be goddamn Armageddon, right? So have you been paying attention to that? Of course you haven't. What about the Strait of Hormuz? Hey, you worry about the price of gas, price of oil, the price of blah, 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 and the goods and consumers. Yeah. Who is controlling the Strait of Hormuz? Where is it? Oh, did you know about that? Okay, so it's between Oman and Iran. Where's Iran? Can you point it on a map? How big is it? Where are the other bodies of water that are around that? Who are they sponsoring? Which extremist groups are they sponsoring? What about the Arctic Ocean? Where's the Arctic? Did you know that we have an Arctic Ocean? Yeah, it's on the top of the world. Did you know that actually thawing out, because global warming actually is a thing. However, it doesn't thaw up in one side as much as it thaws out on the other side. So which side do you think is actually more advantageous? It's the Russian side. Did you know that it goes essentially, the entire Arctic side on that side of the planet essentially is Russia? There's a little part, so from Scandinavia, and the other part that you have Alaska and Canada. That's it, around that, through the North Pole. But everything else, pretty much all the area that is important for that, it is controlled by Russia. So now think about that for a second, okay? I told you that geography is like having these chessboard or this board game, and that is what the board looks like. When you understand geography, then you understand how the world actually is laid out. That's why certain wars, and whenever they move from one side to the other, they mobilize, it's going to be based in geography. There's going to have what is the proximity. Even when you want to talk about, okay, these migrants that are coming from the southern border, why do you think they come north? It's because they cannot go south, okay? Because geography. So I can go on, but there's a lot of areas that have strategic value, and that is part of geopolitics. It's actually interesting whenever you start understanding that there's a larger world outside of the USA, and that larger world, because the planet contains the USA, it actually affects us directly. Our food, our goods, our services, our labor, all kinds of things are actually coming from all these other areas from the world. But if we burn those bridges, then it gets more expensive for us. It gets a lot harder for us to do certain things. And one of those ways is the choke points. That means all those straits that happen, where the oceans, they have like these little narrow ways. Those are called choke points. If you control those choke points, then you control the world. And we have lost in the USA a lot of control over those areas. So we are challenged, or we have a lot of danger or problems actually moving through those areas. And that is part of geopolitics. You need to understand, okay, the geography, politics, the rules that are moving through that. So if we lose those bilateral agreements, if we lose those seats at the table, then all that very delicate system starts going down south. And one of those things is actually Ukraine. So the Ukraine right now, like it or not, is been holding us from going to World War III since February 2022 when it started. Yeah, you just don't realize this, but a lot of people, even in Ukraine, they didn't believe that this was actually going to happen. In fact, they were saying, yeah, it's preposterous. Russia said that they were not going to invade. Russia said, that was not going to happen. That was even in Europe. Even until the 23rd of February 2022, which is the day before the Russian forces crossed into the border in Ukraine. They haven't left. So this has happened to a lot of people who were just listening to the government, or just listening to some officials, or listening to whoever was the talking head, say like, yeah, that's not going to happen. We're going to be fine. And it's been well over 2 years, and that's been going on. I actually wrote in my website, www.halflifecrisis.com. If you go to the articles and look for the Ukraine, I actually been making some recounts, some historical recounts, so you can actually see how it's been moving on. And I'm going to be making another one very soon, because there has been a lot of changes, particularly right now that Biden has authorized now to use long-range missiles into Russia. Now Russia is planning on retaliating, not just Ukraine with nuclear weapons, but likely probably the USA or some of the U.S. interest. So these things are heating up very, very fast. And I bet you a lot of people are not even fucking paying attention to that. But this is how it takes a level of understanding about not just the political culture, but in climate, but it also includes understanding the cultural intricacies, because how people actually perceive the world and how they actually see the world is going to be very different for you and I than it is going to be for another person. So, for example, did you know that a lot of the culture is actually linked to the grammar of a language? So the grammar, how they actually compose the sentences, is going to have a certain impact on how people actually see the world, even if we're very similar in some ways, but there's going to have a certain impact. So there's different intricacies that most people don't really think about, because we're just thinking from our point of view, but there are many different points of view. And guess what? For the people who are actually in charge of geopolitics, this is not a partial credit exam. If you're missing one element, then the whole thing can go down. So just think about that like in a vehicle, okay? So you have a car, it's like all put together, and there's a bearing or there's a bolt or something that you fail to put together, and the whole thing comes unravels or creates other problems. Same thing. Or think about like water damage, okay? It's all the house looking nice, but then you have this little place where there's water seeping in, it creates water damage. You might not see it for a long time, but then it's going to create this rot, and it's going to essentially destroy the thing from the inside out. That, That is exactly what we're seeing in geopolitics, okay? That rot, that destruction, it takes a while. It's not something that goes fast. An authoritarian who wants to take over you is not interested in instant gratification. It's going to take a while. So that's why also our domestic policy is so linked to the foreign policy, not just in the USA, but abroad, okay? Because each one of those countries, they also have to make some calculations. If the USA is going down the tubes and everybody thinks that, okay, the USA is fucking stupid, okay, it's not doing something right, now they have Trump again and they have Matt Gaetz is a person who is accused of having raped a minor in crossing state lines with said minor, and we have a Secretary of Defense who has been just a major in the National Guard and has really not any level of experience to command the military from that side, from that size. I mean, that is going to be very concerning. If this guy was never even a commanding officer for a unit, how are you going to make him commanding officer for every fucking unit in the world? So the other countries are going to be thinking about that and say like, yeah, maybe we should start thinking a little bit more about what we're going to be doing, or what can we do about it? So we are in that in that pivotal time in our history when things are going to be a lot harder for people to realize what is going on. People are not going to be understanding right away, okay, what the hell happened to the USA in real time. Other nations are also being thrown off their game because what we are doing is essentially changing the whole dynamic, and it's scary for them because now they go, okay, so I don't know if I can trust the USA. I don't know. I mean, does this guy actually knows what the fuck he's doing? I mean, he said in national television that he doesn't wash his hands. Literally, he said that. He had to pay somebody money because of sexual allegation. He was only a major with 12 years of experience, not even continuous experience, but, like in two separate times. What is that going to be as far as the level of calculation that another nation has to be putting when it comes to the USA now? Hey, these guys, they have nukes. They have great military forces. And the best thing that they can actually find is a person who is a junior officer to take those roles. That is incredibly inconvenient for the USA, but it's very convenient for Russia or for anybody else. Do you think that Russia was going to be putting somebody that is a low-level military person for the equivalent of Secretary of Defense? Think about that. Do you think China is going to do that? Do you think any fucking country in the planet is going to be doing that? No, they wouldn't do that. But we're doing that here in the USA. Why? Because the guy, he says something that Trump likes on TV. That seems to be the case. And bilateral agreements are very important because we cannot take things granted, or our allies are important. Okay, so I used to give this example again. So let's say that you work somewhere, okay, and like your commute is, let's say, like 30 minutes away from wherever you live, and you have your dog is not feeling well, okay, and it's been shitting all over the carpet. So you need somebody to actually open the door, for the dog, so you can actually come in and out, and make sure they're checking on him. Now, if you do that, you would have to leave from work several times a day and do a 1 hour back and forth commute. So you're not going to be able to do that. But if you have your neighbor who, okay, maybe, the neighbor actually is just living there, not having anything else to do, you can ask, hey, can you just open the door once in a while and make sure, that the dog comes out so he doesn't shit on my carpet? That neighbor would be able to say, yeah, if they want to do that, if you're cool. Yeah, okay, cool. Open their door, let the dog out, make sure that your carpet is not fucked up, let the dog in. Do that a couple of times, and you would be able to do the same thing. Similar like that in geopolitics. Yeah. If we are policing the entire world instead of actually having allies, now you have service members getting longer and longer deployments, which had happened, by the way, because a lot of the prestige that we lost during the Trump era was, okay, I don't know if we can actually trust the USA, maybe I'm not going to be playing necessarily ball. So now we actually have to go and start spending more and more time. And it gets even more complex than that, okay, because the geopolitics is also going to be taking targets of opportunity. And when it talks targets of opportunity, it's going to be very disgusting in the sense that there's going to be lives and genocide involved. So, for example, the war between Israel and Hamas, where Hamas is hiding behind innocent people, they just got this person in charge of the diplomacy in the USA for the Trump administration who does not give a shit about Palestine. What do you think is going to happen for all those Trump Arabs for Trump who thought that they were going to be taking care of Palestine? Yeah, you know what they're going to be taking care of? It's not going to be the taking care of that you hope for. And I hope that you fucking understand that that's why some people that were telling you, hey, there's a certain process for why we have to do certain things. And I was telling you before, the conflicts, they take a long time to brew and escalate. So it's not that it's going to just happen like right away. So a couple of the things that we see in the further instability in the Middle East were Trump's fuck-up decisions. First one was that he said that he was going to be moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Okay, cool. Do that. But what are the implications? When you do that, then it creates a tinderbox. It's not that they're going to start attacking you right away, okay? But it is going to be creating that resentment. Remember what I was telling you, okay? Just like the water damage, that is just seeping. You're not going to see the damage until your fucking floorboards fall down. Similar things, okay? It creates that. The other thing that he did, he brought the Taliban. The Taliban to essentially hanging out in the USA to make some type of deal without the actual Afghan government that was against the Taliban. And now the Taliban has taken over. Who did that? That's why then we had to leave Afghanistan, because he already fucked up the thing. Okay, he totaled the fucking house. That's what happened. Okay, he created that water damage, except that in this case it was not just trickling down. He fucking poured not just water but gasoline into the fucking place. So, yeah, it didn't happen right away, but there are certain implications. Geopolitics is supposed to be complex. It's supposed to be a very delicate balance, and he doesn't understand those things. And do you think that these other motherfuckers that are loyalists are going to be understanding the same intricacies? Get fucking real. That's not going to happen. So, that's why you start seeing that shit happening under Biden starting to come out, because everything that Trump was doing was convenient for these adversarial nations. So they were not going to make it harder on him to do the things that were convenient for them. They were not going to sabotage the efforts that they were helping Trump do their bidding. He was not helping the USA. It looked like he was helping the USA to the naive people, but that was not helping the USA, because then whenever the next presidency comes, then they start fucking it up. So if he would have done the correct thing, then the Biden presidency would have been smooth sailing. You understand? Because you don't work for a party. You work for the country. So if he would have done the correct thing, then Biden's problems that he had to see, they would have not existed, because he would have fixed them. But since he was actually doing something that was convenient for these other nations and these other regimes, then they made it very hard on Biden. As a matter of fact, if Kamala would have won, right now we would be probably escalating conflict. You don't think about that, of course, because you don't understand geopolitics, and that's why I'm teaching you this. I've been talking more about geopolitics also in my books, Authoritarianism and Propaganda, The Puppet Master Tools, and in Woke and Proud, The Charlatan's Inconvenience. These are non-fiction, thought-provoking books that are analysis on how the propagandists go rampant by essentially mind-fucking people. So those are available anywhere, wherever you want to hear them and read them. And, not hear them, I haven't done an audio version, but they are in ebook and paperback, and there's coming up also a hard copy. So at some point, I might as well fucking read it to people, because I care about giving you this information. This information has been out there, but people just don't pay attention to that, unfortunately, because they just listen to talking heads who think what they're knowing, but they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. So, also, you can see a whole bunch of articles that I've been talking about this thing in exuberant detail at www.halflifecrisis.com. Just go to the article section and read all that, so you can see the timestamps, so you can see how we got here. And of course, I created my other website, www.infoincontext.com, which is a free educational resource for you to understand how propagandists have been able to take over our lives and how to prevent it. So this is what I'm doing for everybody. It's free. I'm not even asking you guys to have any sponsorship or anything. I'm not even doing this thing for clicks, even if nobody reads this thing or even if nobody sees it. I'm recording that as a historical document because a lot of people, they're failing to do that. So in our next topic, we're actually going to be talking about the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or NATO, and are we at risk of losing this alliance? I know that today's topic was very long, but geopolitics is not supposed to be an easy subject. It's not supposed to be just a quick thing. And I know that a lot of people are probably not going to be listening to this thing. And hopefully if you did and you got to this point, well, thank you. I appreciate that, because I'm doing this thing not for my health. I'm doing it for you. Okay, I already know this shit. I need you to know it as well. But the problem is that if we lose NATO, then that is incredibly convenient for Russia. That's exactly what they want. Why do you think that they were so fucking giddy when Trump was talking shit about NATO during his first term, and now he's talking shit about NATO during his next term that it is starting in January? Yeah, there's a fucking reason. You have to understand what the adversarial nation is telling you in order to understand geopolitics. So, as I told you, the best way to destroy a country is from the inside out, and it becomes a catalyst by making people dumber. But make sure that they just think that they know everything there is to know because they fucking read little bumper sticker size talking points and repeat them in rapid succession in gish galloping fashion. Yeah, that's stupid. Yeah, that means that they don't respect you. That means that they think you're fucking stupid. And you're proving them right if you're doing exactly that. So the problem is that most people, they just get bored. They just don't want to listen to this thing. They just get over it. Well, yeah, I don't want to hear this thing. This makes me feel bad. Well, guess what? They don't give a shit if you feel bad. They're going to be taking advantage of your life. So make no mistake, because we're closer than ever to a nuclear armed conflict. And for you Christians, that might actually be your Armageddon that you were expecting for the second coming of Jesus, except that there's not going to be a second Jesus coming at this time, regardless of what you think. If there's going to be a nuclear Armageddon, you're just going to see destruction. And you might not even get to see it because you're fucking going to get vaporized along with the rest of us. So that's why we need to have a varsity level team in the USA. We're going to be talking more about this thing in the next chapter. I know this was a little bit longer, but I hope you got something out of that. All right. We'll talk later, guys. Bye.